Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. And as always, a huge thanks to the community partners who make it possible for us to be here each week. Prime 47 Downtown, Tesco, and Shepherd Community Center. The support of these tremendous companies makes it possible for us to be with you every week right here on WHMB TV 40. I'm so glad you have all joined us tonight because we're in for a real treat. Ashley Powell, the Director of Community Relations from the Indianapolis Colts, is with us tonight. Ashley, thank you so much for carving out some time for us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to talk to you tonight about the Kicking the Stigma initiative that the Colts have been doing for the last couple of years. I can't imagine anyone in Indianapolis doesn't know about it, but for those that might not know, what is Kicking the Stigma?
Yeah, Kicking the Stigma is our initiative focused on, bringing awareness to mental health and mental illnesses and truly just kicking the stigma around it. Mental health and just mental illness in general is really important to the Irsay family, which are the owners of the Indianapolis Colts, and have been very public with their story surrounding that. And so this was really important for us to tackle as an organization, and really use our brand to amplify the message and just bring awareness around it.
Why was it important to the Irsay family and to the Colts? I mean, it's a great cause. Obviously, It's something we talk about every week here on Restoring Hope. But there are so many great causes. There are so many ways to use your influence and your money and the ability of the Colts to impact people. Why do you think this was where the whole organization chose to focus so much?
Yeah, well, and I will say too, the Irsay family is amazing in that they do still continue to support all those different causes,
right.
and they're so philanthropic, and that's really instilled from the top down with them. But again, mental health is just really important to their family and what they've experienced, with Mr. Irsay and his daughters, and growing up in this industry. And we see, so many of our players have stepped forward as well too with this, and shown that it's okay to not be okay, and which I think is really unique and special to have them step out and step forward and walk with us in this initiative. But again, just knowing the sobering statistics in our state specifically, which is where we started, that we wanted to really try and make an impact and try and make a change in that. And so again, that was just very important to the family.
And do you see the meter being moved? Has the initiative actually made some progress, helped in this fight? Because it is a fight to remove the stigma and to fight against some of the mental health barriers that are out there. Has this helped?
Yeah, I think, it's going to be an ongoing thing and we've got some great contacts with organizations that we've made that we've tried to remain in contact with to understand those statistics. I think where we've seen just recently is we're nearing the end of our first round of action grant recipients. And so we're starting to receive information on things that they were able to do with just the funding. So that's just a small piece of our initiative. But in that regards, yes, I think we've seen some steps being made with organizations that are able to offer services to the members that they serve in their community because of the funding from Kicking the Stigma. So in that regards, yes, I think statistics-wise, we still have a long way to go. Yeah. And we are not going anywhere with Kicking the Stigma, and we'll continue to push this forward as much as we can.
Are there any of those specific metrics that you guys focus on that you say, boy, 5 years, 10 years from now, because it's a long haul.
Yeah.
We'd love to see this metric look a little different. We'd love to see Indiana in a better place, a better ranking in this metric. Are there any specifics that you're looking for, or just broad improvement would be nice?
Yeah, well, broad improvement would be great. And what we have learned in this is that mental health affects a broad array of people.
Everybody, right?
It affects everybody. The youth side of things, I think, is really kind of rising to the top for us. There's some pretty sad statistics as far as the suicide rates with youth ages 10 to 24 that we would love to see go in the opposite direction. And so the youth piece really is important to us, and being able to support organizations that are bringing services to that age group, specifically helping their parents find help for them, because that's what we're seeing the most. And when we talk to people is people don't know where to go, they can't get in to get help anywhere, and there's just a lot of barriers to getting that assistance. And our youth and our community have so much life left to live, and seeing the suicide statistics is just disheartening. And so I think that's where we would really like to see a change, but really across the board.
Yeah, and that's one of those areas where Indiana just does not rank very well. It's very sad to see that. And I think sometimes we can walk through our lives and we miss that. We don't see that Indiana is near the bottom in a lot of these stats. Has it been eye-opening to you personally and to the Colts how helpful this has been to people already and how much this is needed?
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen, when we launched this, we've been talking about this for several years. And then the pandemic hit, and we pushed forward. So what better way to do it than a global pandemic? And we really saw more so than ever people kind of coming out and reaching out for help. And since launching the initiative, we've just had so much great feedback from Indiana, across the country, of people reaching out and sharing stories of how maybe it impacted them, whether it encouraged them to speak out and get help, or seeing, a player like Darius Leonard tell his story has really impacted kids speaking up to their parents, and just the people that want to be involved and that see it. And like you said, it affects everybody. It's not so different from cancer, where almost everybody knows somebody that it's affected them in their life.
Sure.
And so, yeah, we've seen a lot of great feedback from that.
You mentioned players in general, Darius Leonard specifically. How critical is it that the players have embraced this? You have such an interesting organizational model. Your employees are mostly not from Indiana. They're mostly young men.
Yeah.
Their careers don't span 40 or 50 years. They span 5, 10, maybe 15 years.
Yeah.
So you have an interesting employee base, but to have their buy-in and their support, I would imagine, is critical here.
Yeah, it's been great. And we actually were one of the first organizations to have a behavioral health therapist on staff for our players. Dr. Elizabeth White, she's been an amazing resource for our team and our football players. A lot of people really only see them on the field on Sundays, but they put in so much work during the week, several hours. And so the commitment that they make to their craft and to their job, that is their job, is a lot. And so having someone on staff like that to be able to support them, I think has been a great resource. But again, having them feel confident and comfortable enough to speak out, it's just been amazing.
That is amazing. Ashley, thanks so much for sharing on Kicking the Stigma. We're going to take a quick break and then come back and talk about all things Colts, not just Kicking the Stigma. So, Ashley, thank you for being with us. Thank you. We will be right back for part 2 of this conversation. Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm Curtis Smith. We are joined by Ashley Powell, the Director of Community Relations from the Indianapolis Colts. Ashley, thanks for spending a little more time with us tonight.
Of course.
Tell us about other things going on besides Kicking the Stigma. The Colts are such a huge part of our community and the fabric of Indianapolis. What else are you guys investing into these days?
Yeah, well, we are extremely busy as an organization. I think, as I mentioned earlier, just philanthropy and the Indianapolis community is so important to the Irsay family. They have lived in Indianapolis, since the team has been here. So I think that's unique across the NFL. And so really making an impact in the community and taking care of our fellow Hoosiers is very important. So we, throughout the year, really are giving back in any way that we can, whether it's through hospital visits, school visits. We built our 13th playground last fall down on the east side. And so just bringing that joy to the community members in that way is just extremely important to us.
That's awesome. You said before we started the interview off camera, you said on the business side, we have no off season.
Right.
That is very true. So what does summer look like around the offices, the work that you guys do? Because obviously the football team has an off season.
Correct.
And even the players really probably don't take much of an off season, but you guys don't get an off season at all. So for those who love the Colts so much, give us a sneak peek behind the curtain. What is it like to work there, to be there through the summer months?
Yeah, it is exciting. I would say now, there's the end of the season, whether it be in January or you go through February, which everybody hopes that they do.
Yeah, hopefully it ends in February.
Yeah, right. And then there's kind of that lull where it's the season's ended and everyone's kind of coming down off of a long season, and then you're right back at it. And really draft is the time of year that it feels like there's a lot of excitement in the building. You've got your scouts back in, they're all meeting about the upcoming draft, and from there it's just like full steam ahead. We've got OTAs going on and different things like that. But on the business side of things, this is a really big part of our planning year. So this is the time our schedule comes out in May every year. And so we use that time to really plan ahead for the season and be able to go into execution mode once we hit it. So we have every department across the building that you could think of. We do our own in-house radio, our own in-house television shows. Everything happens at West 56th Street. So we have a very large staff of very talented individuals across the board that are very unique, bring very unique assets to the organization.
That schedule probably drives a lot. That might be something about the business that a lot of people don't think about. Oh, that schedule comes out in May, and that truly sets your workflow and work calendar for the rest of the year. Most people try to go into a year with a plan. Oh, let's plan for this year.
Yeah.
You don't find out your actual football schedule till May. That's got to be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, we try and get ahead of it as much possible with what we want to do, but as far as plugging in dates and different things, we have to wait until that schedule comes out.
Right.
So, because, we play on Sundays, we can play on Thursdays, Mondays, you never know.
Right.
So,
and you don't know what weeks you're going to be in this state, or you could be in California, 2,000 miles away, or Florida, or New York. I mean, you could be anywhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the schedule, again, that's kind of like another milestone of when that hits, everything really gets into high gear, with everybody, because then you can start plugging and playing. We have a lot of team partners that we work with, our community events, our events department, and everything that they're pulling off as well, too. So there's a lot that goes into, an NFL organization more than just what happens on the field as well, too, which is obviously very important. But off the field, we feel we run pretty parallel to that.
Do you think people get the scope of the Colts, or is it so focused on what's happening on the field that people maybe lose the perspective of, oh, it's a company, it's a business, it's a lot of people working there Monday through Saturday, 12 months a year?
Yeah.
Or do people get so focused in on the field part?
I like to think most people know, that what we're doing. I think the excitement for a lot of people, people get excited with the draft and the schedule release.
Right.
The NFL has done a really good job of really amplifying those points of the season as well, just to continue that excitement rather than it's just, well, here's the schedule, and then you kind of have a couple months off, and then training camp, and then really training camp is when it kicks into high gear.
Right. So you have one of those dream jobs. I mean, like if you're an 8-year-old kid in third grade and the teacher says, what do you want to do when you grow up? Somebody might say, I'd love to work for the Colts. What is it like to wake up every day and go to a job that is a lot of people's dream job? Yeah,
it's fun. It keeps me on my toes for sure. I would say there's no normal day. You never know kind of what's going to come down the pipeline that day, but I think, it creates an opportunity for people to grow, to be flexible and adapt to an ever-changing environment. When it comes down to it, we're in the entertainment industry, right? So it's just fun to go to work with these people as well, too. We have some really good individuals in that organization that have been there for a really long time, that are a really special part of that organization, that really make it go every day. And so that's probably one of my favorite parts about it.
Another dynamic that I think is interesting, and maybe not completely unique to the Colts, but it's, I think, somewhat rare, is that you're the only NFL team in the state. This isn't California, where we have 2-3 teams, or New York or Florida or whatever. We have one NFL team. Indianapolis is the only city in the state with professional sports at the highest level. You're almost the state's team. Does that mindset, is it only focused on Indianapolis inside the building, or do you guys have that mindset of we're really the state's team?
No, we really try and focus our impact across the state in everything we do. We might be called the Indianapolis Colts, but definitely what we do from a philanthropic side and just reaching individuals is really statewide. It's a large state, and so we do our best to hit every corner that we can through different events and programs, but our focus is really on the state of Indiana.
Yeah, and that's hard to do because it is a large state. Get to the northwest corner, the southeast corner, that's a lot of geography to cover. Ashley, let's circle back to Kicking the Stigma. I know people know how to find out about the Colts. They know how to find out scores and all about the players. But if they want to find out more about Kicking the Stigma or some of the other initiatives that you guys are investing into on the business side, what's the best way for them to get plugged into what's going on with the Colts?
Yeah, well, I will always push people to Colts.com. We have a lot of different things on Colts.com. Kicking the Stigma specifically, Colts.com/KTS is the easiest way to get there.
Okay.
We're going to be making a lot of fun announcements in the coming weeks and months. Obviously, with the schedule, we will have a game dedicated to Kicking the Stigma, and we will be hosting our first in-person fundraising event this fall as well, too. So,
Wonderful.
Going into year 2 with them, we're really excited about all of that.
Very last thing, I assume I know what the answer is, but what's your prediction for this upcoming season? I assume you're going to predict a Super Bowl championship.
I'm hoping that we go to February, yes.
That would be great, wouldn't it? I think we would all love to see that.
Yeah.
Ashley, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for what you guys are doing in the community. It is absolutely incredible.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Restoring Hope with Crosswinds Counseling. In this week's Counseling Corner segment, Kendra Johnson joins us to discuss a topic that seems like it comes in waves, but never really goes away, dealing with change and new things.
Hi, my name is Kendra Johnson. I am a therapist here at Crosswinds Counseling. And so today I want to talk to you about adjusting to new circumstances. One thing is change, it kind of sucks because change, good or bad, is different, and so it makes us uncomfortable. And so two things that you really want to think about when you're adjusting to new circumstances is one, why am I feeling uncomfortable? Is it because, it could be because the grief of losing what you were already expecting. And sometimes just grief is not just, oh, I lost someone. It can also be losing, oh, I was expecting to do this and now I have to do something different. Or I was really looking forward to this new position in life, but now that's all changed. And so really thinking about, well, what have I lost? But then also thinking about, well, what can I gain? Like, what perspective do I have in this situation? What's on the flip side? Then also, when you think about adjustment, you can think about, am I communicating what I really need to the people who are important around me? And so sometimes it can just be, I'm really just overwhelmed because I am not asking for help and I'm not getting the things that I need from others. And then sometimes that's hard to do if we are, we have this complex of, oh, I can take on everything, I can take on the world. And it's challenging to say oh, no, I really can't take on the world and I do need support and help in this situation. So just when you think about adjusting to a new circumstance, just remember to think about why am I feeling this way? What am I losing, or what change is making me uncomfortable? And then think about perspective, what joy could you come out of that? What joy can come out of the new change? And think about how you can communicate your needs to the people who are closest to you.
Welcome back. Each week here on Restoring Hope, we focus on the word hope. Crosswinds chaplain Will Gross is back tonight to share his insights on one of the most well-known Bible stories there is, the story of the prodigal son.
Hi, I'm Will Gross, a chaplain from Crosswinds. Today's message of hope comes from the book of Luke, chapter 15, a well-known parable of Jesus, the prodigal son. As you may recall, a man had 2 sons. One of them came to his father and said, "Father, I want my inheritance." He basically told his father, "I wish you were dead. I only want your money." And his father, being gracious, gave it to him. The son moved away to a faraway land and squandered the money on wild living. I say squandered because he did run out of money and eventually found himself slopping pigs in a field somewhere far away. As you recall, pigs were an unclean animal for the Jewish people, so this would have been an extremely low point for someone who had resources recently. He looked up from the pig slop that he wanted to eat, and he realized the hired hands, the servants in my Father's house, have better food than I do. They're at least taken care of. Surely I can return to my Father even as a hired hand. So he did. He went home. And from a far off way, his father saw him coming and ran down the road to meet him and gave him a hug and a kiss and a ring on his finger and a coat on his back. And he threw a party for his son who had returned. What a neat picture that Jesus paints of someone who has turned their back on their Father, on their heavenly Father, and how he is willing to welcome them back even after lots and lots of sin. But the story doesn't really end there, does it? There's also an older brother who was faithful. And he also had a really bad attitude. And he was angry and jealous that the younger brother was receiving this big party when he hadn't done anything wrong and hadn't earned anything. His father reprimanded him and said, "Son, my son was dead and now he's alive. And that's a reason to celebrate." So my encouragement to you, whether you identify more with the son who squandered his wealth and returned to his father's house, or the son who walked the straight and narrow, be thankful for God's grace and accept his compassion and his redemption when there's repentance. And that's the message of hope.
Thanks, Will. As we end our time together tonight, I want to remind you of something we talk about every week here on Restoring Hope. Crosswinds Counseling is a wonderful place to work, and we have lots of career opportunities. If you'd like to join Crosswinds, please check out crosswindscounseling.org/careers. We have openings right now for both counselors and therapists and people in office settings. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and a big thanks again to our sponsors, Shepherd Community Center, Tesco, and Prime 47 downtown. And of course, thanks to our friends here at WHMB TV 40. We'll see you next Thursday night at 9:30. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe and be blessed.